My beloved, listen to me now. I have shared with you the depth of the Father's love. But today, I speak of something equally powerful, faith. Faith that moves mountains, faith that trusts in the power of God, faith that can transform your world. Do you understand, my children? Faith is the key to unlocking the power of God in your life. It is not a passive belief, but an active trust in the one who holds all things in his hands. When you have faith, you move from the realm of the possible into the realm of the impossible. Do you remember when I said, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. That is not just a metaphor, my beloved. That is truth. The power of God's kingdom is made available to you through faith, through your trust in Him. It is by faith that the impossible becomes possible, by faith that you rise above the storm, by faith that you can conquer fear and doubt. I have seen your struggles. I know the mountains that stand before you, the challenges that seem insurmountable, the battles that rage in your heart. But I say to you today that these mountains are nothing compared to the power of the God you serve. Do not look at your circumstances and say, I cannot. For when you trust in the power of God, you will find that there is nothing you cannot overcome. Faith is the key that unlocks the door to victory, the bridge between where you are and where God is calling you to be. The Father has given you the gift of faith, and it is a gift that will move mountains in your life. But do not misunderstand, faith is not about your own strength. It is not about your ability to make things happen. It is about trusting in the strength of the one who is with you. It is about resting in the power of the Father, knowing that He is more than able to do far more than you could ever ask or imagine. This is why I call you to have faith, to trust, to believe in the power of God's promises. My beloved, I know that faith can sometimes feel like a difficult thing to hold on to. You live in a world that thrives on sight, on what you can touch and feel, on what you can control. But I tell you, faith does not rest on what is visible. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. You are called to believe, even when your eyes cannot see the way. You are called to trust, even when your heart trembles with doubt. Consider the many times I have called my followers to trust in God's power, even when everything seemed impossible. Do you remember the storm? When the winds howled and the waves crashed and the disciples feared for their lives. They woke me, crying, Lord, save us. And I asked them, why are you afraid, O you of little faith? With a word, I calmed the storm and the winds ceased. But I ask you, my children, why do you doubt in the midst of your own storms? Why do you fear when the power of God is with you? Do you not see? The same power that calms the wind and waves is the same power that will move the mountains in your life. Faith, my children, is not about the size of your belief, but the strength of the one in whom you place your trust. Do not let your faith be defined by your circumstances. Let your faith be defined by the one who is greater than your circumstances. When you trust in God, you tap into a power greater than you can comprehend. It is a power that heals, that restores, that transforms. It is the power of the Almighty, and it is available to you. Do you believe this? Remember the woman who had been suffering for years with a bleeding illness. She had tried everything, spent all she had, but nothing worked. Yet in her desperation, she reached out, touched the hem of my garment, and immediately she was healed. I felt power go out from me, and I turned to her and said, your faith has healed you. It was not the touch that healed her, but her faith in the power of God. It was her belief, her trust in the one who could heal her, that brought about the miracle. So I ask you, my beloved, what is it that you need healing from? What mountain stands in your way? Reach out in faith, for the power of God is more than enough to overcome it. My beloved, do you understand that the power of God is not limited by what the world calls impossible? The world may tell you that some things are beyond reach, that your situation is too far gone, that the mountain before you is too large to move. But I say to you, there's nothing beyond God's power. The Father is not bound by time, by circumstance, or by the limits of human understanding. His power is limitless, and when you place your faith in Him, you are tapping into that boundless strength. Consider the story of the young boy possessed by a demon, one who had been tormented from childhood. His father brought him to me, desperate for healing, and I asked, "Do you believe that I can do this?" And the father responded, "I believe, help my unbelief." And I said to the demon, "Be gone," and the boy was healed. It was his faith, though imperfect, that opened the door for God's power to move. You see, it is not about having perfect faith, my children. It is about trusting in the power of God, even when your faith feels weak, even when your heart wavers. For it is not your faith that moves the mountain, it is the power of God that does. But your faith is the channel through which that power flows. I know that sometimes you feel like your faith is small, like your trust in God is fragile. But I say to you, even a faith as small as a mustard seed can move mountains. Do not despise your faith, no matter how small it may seem. For the smallest faith, when placed in the hands of the Almighty, can do mighty things. Do not measure your faith by your feelings or by your circumstances. Measure it by the one to whom your faith is directed. The power of God is not limited by the size of your faith. The power of God is immeasurable, and it will move mountains when you trust in Him. I want you to remember that faith is not just a belief that God can do something. It is a trust that He will do something. It is a confident assurance that He will act on your behalf. Faith is not passive, but active. It is not waiting idly by for something to happen. It is stepping out in trust, taking hold of the promises of God, and believing that He will make them come to pass. My children, faith is not a one-time act, but a continual choice. It is a decision you must make each day, each moment. It is easy to have faith when things are going well, when life is smooth and the path is clear. But true faith is demonstrated when the storms of life come, when the mountains seem insurmountable, when the road ahead is uncertain. It is in those moments that your faith is tested, refined, and proven to be strong. Remember, my beloved, that faith is not about having all the answers. It is not about knowing the exact way forward. It is about trusting in the one who knows the way. There will be times when you don't understand why things happen the way they do, when you don't know why the mountain still stands before you. But I ask you to trust. Trust in the Father's plan. Trust that He is working all things for your good, even when you cannot see it. His ways are higher than your ways, and His thoughts higher than your thoughts. When you trust in His power, you trust in His wisdom, His timing, and His goodness. Consider the disciples when they were faced with the feeding of the 5,000. They looked at the crowd and saw the impossibility of the situation. How could they feed so many with so little? But I took the loaves and the fish, gave thanks, and told them to distribute it. And with the power of God, they fed thousands, and there were even leftovers. They saw only lack. I saw abundance. They saw scarcity. I saw opportunity. It was faith in the Father's power that made the impossible possible. And in the same way, when you trust in God's power, you will see opportunities where others see obstacles. Faith, my children, is the lens through which you see the world. It is the way you look at your circumstances and say, God is greater than this. It is the way you look at your dreams and say, God is able to make this happen. It is the way you look at your fears and say, God is stronger than my fear. When you see with the eyes of faith, you see through the power of God. You see what is possible, not because of your strength, but because of His. My beloved, do not allow doubt to rob you of the power of faith. Doubt is the enemy of trust. It whispers lies to your heart, telling you that God cannot, will not, or has not done what He promised. But I say to you, my children, faith and doubt cannot coexist in the same heart. Faith calls you to trust in God's power, in His faithfulness, even when everything around you suggests otherwise. You must choose to believe in the promises of God, regardless of the storm that rages around you. Think of Peter, my disciple. When he stepped out of the boat to walk on water toward me, his eyes were fixed on me, and he walked in the power of faith. But the moment he looked around and saw the wind and the waves, his faith faltered and he began to sink. He cried out, "Lord, save me!" And I reached out my hand and caught him, saying, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" When you focus on the power of God, when you keep your eyes on me, you will walk in faith. But when you allow doubt and fear to enter your heart, you will stumble. Keep your eyes on the one who holds the power to move mountains, and you will not be shaken. Doubt will tell you that your prayers are in vain, that your efforts are futile. But I say to you, my children, keep praying, keep believing. For faith, even when it feels small, even when it feels weak, is powerful in the hands of God. When you ask in faith, you can be assured that God hears you and that He will answer. Sometimes the answer comes quickly, and sometimes it takes time, but trust this: the Father's timing is always perfect. His power is always at work, even when you do not see it. There are times when the mountain before you may not move as quickly as you desire, and it may seem like the road is longer than you had hoped. But I ask you, do not grow weary in well-doing. Do not lose heart. Trust in the power of God, for He is faithful. He will move the mountains in His time and in His way. Your faith will not go unnoticed. Your faith will bear fruit. Remember, the Father is not like man, that He should lie. His promises are sure. His word is true. When you stand in faith, you stand on the foundation of His truth. And that truth is this: God is able. He is able to do immeasurably more than all you ask or imagine. He is able to heal, to restore, to provide, to move mountains. There is nothing beyond His reach. There is no situation too difficult, no dream too impossible, no mountain too high for the power of God to overcome. My beloved, I understand that the road of faith is not always easy. There will be times when the weight of the world presses in on you, when you feel as if the mountains are too tall and the valleys too deep. But I say to you, you are not alone in this journey. The same power that raised me from the dead lives within you, the same power that caused the blind to see, the lame to walk, and the dead to rise is available to you. Do not forget this, my children. You are not fighting this battle with your own strength, but with the strength of God. Think of the early church. They faced great persecution, great opposition. They were mocked, beaten, and thrown into prison for their faith. But they never wavered, for they knew that the power of God was with them. They knew that no mountain was too great for God to move, no difficulty too hard for God to overcome. And with that faith, they turned the world upside down. Their trust in God's power moved mountains of fear, of oppression, and of sin. And my children, you are called to do the same. Do not look at the giants in your life and say, "I am too small to face them," for the greater one is in you. Remember David, the young shepherd boy who faced the giant Goliath. With a slingshot and a stone, he brought down the mighty warrior, not because of his own strength, but because of his faith in God's power. "The battle is the Lord's," David said, and indeed, it was. When you stand in faith, it is not your power that overcomes, but the power of God. Trust in His strength, and the giants in your life will fall before you. It is not enough to simply know about God's power. You must experience it. You must place your trust in it, step out in faith, and watch as God works in ways that only He can. When you walk in faith, you will see His power at work in your life. You will see the mountains move, the barriers fall, the obstacles cleared. It may not always happen the way you expect or on your timeline, but know this: God's power is always at work, and His power will never fail. As you continue to walk in faith, remember that faith is not only about receiving from God, but it is also about glorifying Him. Every act of faith is an act of worship, an offering to the Father. When you trust in God's power, you declare to the world that He is worthy of your trust, that He is worthy of your praise. Every time you choose to believe, even in the face of the impossible, you magnify His greatness. Your faith is a testimony to the power of God, to His ability to do what no one else can. Do not underestimate the power of your faith. When you trust in God, you invite His glory into your life. You invite His presence to move in you and through you. Just as I told my disciples that they would do greater things than I did, so too are you called to live out the power of God. Do you believe this, my children? Do you believe that you are vessels of His power, carriers of His glory? For when you trust in God, you become a reflection of His power, a testimony of His faithfulness. There will be times when you will face opposition, when the world will question your faith, when people will mock you for believing in what they cannot see. But I tell you, hold firm. Let your faith be a witness to the world. Let your trust in God's power shine in the darkness. Let it be a light that draws others to Him. For the world will know that you are my disciples by your love, but they will also know by your faith. Faith that moves mountains is a faith that speaks louder than words. It is a faith that shows the world the greatness of God. I understand, my children, that there will be moments of doubt, times when you feel like giving up, when the road is too long and the burdens too heavy. But remember, you do not walk alone. The Father walks with you, and His power is within you. Even when you cannot see the way, trust that He is leading you. Even when the mountain seems immovable, trust that He is moving it. Keep walking, keep believing, and watch as God works wonders in your life. My son, I want you to understand something very important. Faith is not only for the mountain-moving moments, but also for the quiet, everyday moments of your life. It is easy to trust God when the stakes are high, when the situation is dramatic, when the mountain stands before you in all its grandeur. But true faith is found in the small moments, the ordinary acts of life, where you trust God in the unseen, in the routine, in the places where you may not feel as though anything is happening. Remember, faith is not a one-time event, it is a lifestyle. It is not just about believing for miracles or breakthroughs. It is about trusting God every day, in every decision, in every relationship, in every circumstance. It is about walking with Him in the quiet moments as much as in the loud ones. It is about saying, Father, I trust you in all things, even when you do not understand what is happening. It is about choosing to rest in His promises, even when the world is chaotic. Many of my followers experienced miracles, but they also faced trials. They trusted in God's power in the miraculous moments, but they also trusted in His power when their circumstances were challenging. The Apostle Paul knew this well. He faced imprisonment, beatings, and shipwrecks, yet he said, I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation. I can do all this through Him who gives me strength. That strength is the power of God that comes when you trust Him, not just for the big moments, but in the everyday things. So I ask you, my children, to live by faith in all things. Trust in God's power when the mountain is high, and trust in it when the path is winding and unclear. Faith is not only for the moments when you need a miracle, it is for the moments when you need peace, when you need guidance, when you need strength to carry on. Faith in God's power is not just for the miraculous, it is for the everyday living. My beloved, I want you to know that even when you face challenges, even when you feel like your faith is being tested, you are not alone. The Father is with you, and His power is available to you. Sometimes the mountains you face may not move immediately, and the storms may not come instantly. But I promise you, every step you take in faith is a step that pleases God. Every moment you trust in His power, even when you don't see the result right away, you are building something eternal. Faith is not just about getting what you want, but about becoming the person God has called you to be. It's about growing in trust, growing in perseverance, growing in the knowledge of His goodness. Even when you don't see the full picture, trust that God is working behind the scenes. Just as a seed grows beneath the soil before it breaks through to the surface, so too is God working in you even when you cannot see it. His power is working in ways you cannot imagine. Remember the story of Abraham, the father of faith. He was called to leave everything he knew, to trust God for a promise that seemed impossible. He believed that God could do what seemed beyond reason. Even when his body was old and his wife's womb was barren, he believed that God could give him a son. And through his faith, the promises of God were fulfilled. Abraham's faith was not perfect, but it was a faith that trusted in the power of God above all else. So I say to you, my children, trust in God's timing. Trust in his process. The mountains before you may not move as quickly as you desire, but trust that God's power is at work, even when you cannot see it. He is faithful to finish the good work he has started in you. Every act of faith, no matter how small, is planting a seed that will grow into something beautiful in God's time. And know this, no matter how long it takes, no matter how difficult the journey, you will never walk alone. The power of God is with you every step of the way. You are not left to figure it out on your own. You are not abandoned. Trust in his presence. Trust in his power. And in the fullness of time, the mountains will move, the valleys will be filled, and you will see the glory of God revealed in your life. As you continue to walk by faith, remember that God's power is not just for you alone. The power you receive is meant to flow through you, to touch others, to bring life and healing to those around you. Your faith is not only a personal journey, but a gift to the world. Just as I came to serve and to give my life for the salvation of many, so too are you called to live a life of faith that touches the lives of others. Think of the Samaritan woman at the well. She came to draw water, but she left with something much greater, a life transformed by faith. She encountered my power, and it changed her. She believed, and it moved her to go back to her village and tell others about the living water she had found. Her faith didn't stop with her. It spread to others, and that is how faith works. When you trust in God's power, it overflows. It touches those around you, and others are drawn to the light of his love. You are called to be a light in the darkness. Your faith is the beacon that guides others to the Father. Do not hide your faith. Let it shine for all to see. When you trust in God, you declare to the world that there is a God who is alive, who is able, who is working miracles today. Your faith can encourage others, lift them up, and help them to see that nothing is impossible with God. As you step forward in faith, remember this. You are not just trusting in a distant power, but in a personal, loving Father who is intimately involved in every detail of your life. His heart is for you. His power is for you. His love is for you. And when you trust him, you align yourself with the greatest force in the universe, the very force that spoke the world into existence, that raised the dead to life, that healed the sick and made the blind to see. His power is not distant, but near, and it is working on your behalf every moment of every day. The mountains may still stand before you. The road may still be rocky. But trust this, with God, all things are possible. His power is greater than anything you will ever face. When you walk by faith, you tap into that power, and with his power, there is no obstacle too great, no mountain too high. When you trust in him, you can face any challenge, knowing that you are not facing it alone. The Father is with you, and his power is within you. So I say to you, my children, do not fear the mountains. Do not fear the trials. For the same God who moves mountains is the God who is with you now. Trust in his power. Walk by faith. And as you do, you will see his power at work in your life. You will see the impossible become possible. You will see the mountains move, the storms calm, and the barriers fall. And through it all, you will see that his love is the foundation of it all, the power that holds everything together. And as you trust in his power, let your faith be a testimony to those around you. Let it be a beacon of hope to a world in darkness. Let your faith move mountains, not just in your life, but in the lives of those you love, and in the lives of those who are watching you. For when they see the power of God at work in you, they will know that there is a God who is alive, who is powerful, and who is good. Remember this always. Faith that moves mountains is not a faith in your own ability, but a faith in God's power. And when you trust in His power, you will see that nothing is impossible. I am with you, my children, and my power is at work in you. Trust in me and watch as I move mountains in your life. Now go forth in faith. Stand firm. Walk boldly, for with God you are more than a conqueror. And in His name, the mountains will move, the path will be made clear, and the power of God will be revealed to all the world.